Hi, I'm Dr. Keith Johnson. I've been struggling with an understanding of faith all my life, and I would try to be a man of great faith personally, but let me tell you, I come far short of the course. As hard as I tried to understand God, the less I understand Him, and, quite frankly, the less I understand myself. The attempt is for me to develop a better understanding of who I am and how I can serve what I understand to be God and how I can serve my fellow men at the same time. I don't have a lot of answers. One thing that I've learned is in striving to experience and build your faith, you can't do it. It's hard to put faith into something that you can't see. In fact, the Bible explains that that's what faith is: the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And out of that very chapter is the excitement of understanding some of the great men of faith, men who lived their life by faith and whom God rewarded over a period of time. And so I start to contemplate over my own weaknesses and over the many sins that I've committed and over the lack of faith that I have. And I start to get depressed, especially when I examine some of the things that God put other men of faith through who were renowned in the scriptures eternally for the faith they had. And of course, in the understanding of man's faith, Abraham comes first. It says that Abraham is well known for his faith in God. So I went back and decided to renew my experience with Abraham. There's a lot of things I remember about Abraham, but faith is not one of them. Now, I know that when Abraham was introduced to me years and years ago, that faith was the big common on his personality, to which you and I probably subscribe and come to understand. But as I look over the men of faith, I start to wonder about my own character, because frankly, I'm not sure I can handle what they did. I have trouble believing that I'm as strong as they are. Abraham is a good example. Let's take time to look at him. Here's a man who used to make his living by building idols and selling them. Now, Abraham, of course, is the father of the Jewish faith. And back then, Abraham didn't have a lot of guidelines except his own heart. He didn't have the Bible that you and I have. He didn't have a chance to study what God thought. He could only take whatever he could feel and understand about God until God spoke to him directly. And then when God spoke to him directly, it's as if God tested him through his entire life. I don't believe I could handle it. I don't believe that I have the strength to be able to put through my life what Abraham was able to do. God tells Abraham to pack up and to go to a land that he doesn't even know. And Abraham would say, I would think, where do you want me to go? Where am I going? And God simply answered him by saying, I'll show you. Now that can be a frustrating experience by itself, and it's only the beginning. There are so many spots where Abraham tries to understand life. Now, it's interesting that in the Bible, evidently, Abraham was a very strong leader. Good thing, because he was one that only the Jewish people had, and he was one of the only people that could stand up and guide and judge and help the people understand how their life should be led by a God that they didn't see and couldn't see, didn't understand exactly where he was or what he was supposed to do. So Abraham packs up and starts heading out to a land where he knows not. How does he know where to turn? How does he know what roads to take? How does he know where his people are? And I'm sure that he looks around and he sees, I'm not sure how many Jewish people there were, but small or large, Abraham's in charge of leading them. And God says, pack up your stuff, go. Where? Just do it. And he does it. That's the amazing thing to me. Now, one of my Bachelor of Arts degrees happens to be in philosophy. I love philosophy, and I love to discuss the philosophy of an individual, his character, his temperament, or why things seem to have happened the way they did. And when I begin to study and understand Abraham, there's so little that I do understand. Because, first of all, I don't understand how Abraham can have the strength to get up and not know where he's going, take his family. And that's not the only place that God tested him. I mean, the Jewish people believe that, and they still do, that a lot of their salvation is found in their children. So you have to have children to carry the family on. Abraham doesn't have any children. And not only does he not have any children a little bit, all of his life he goes through without having any children. And God says, your children are going to be greater than the number of stars that you can see at night. And Abraham has to believe him. But Abraham doesn't have any. He doesn't see this happening. And not only does he not see it happening, but when he gets to old age, he can't have any children. His wife doesn't have any children. In fact, they give up to such an extent that finally Abraham decides to go with the customs, and his handmaiden becomes the surrogate. Abraham conceives his first son with his handmaiden, under the okay of his wife Sarah, who actually made the suggestion and said, Abraham, you need to go put your seed in Sarah so that, put your seed in your handmaiden so that she can have your children. Now, God had told them that they were going to have kids. And God said that their kids were going to be greater than the number of the stars. But Sarah was very, very old at this point. And hadn't had any children. They continued to have faith. Now, maybe I'm trying to overthink this. I don't have that kind of faith. I don't know how I would have held out with God telling me I was going to have kids and it was important to me, and then I couldn't have them. I don't blame Abraham getting impatient. And what that must have done to their marriage, very difficult. And interestingly enough, the handmaiden does get pregnant, and she does have a child. And of course, that causes a lot of struggle between Abraham's wife and the handmaiden, as well as the families together. In fact, it's that experience that creates a lot of the war of history that we've seen. Now, what I'm trying to point out is, I don't think I have that kind of faith. I don't think I have that kind of patience. I don't think I could be okay where I wasn't bothered by what was happening, and I wouldn't throw things up in the air and say, what's going on here? Now, that's pretty egotistical. That's pretty determinant as to what happens to me really counts. And yet, the plans of God must be so much greater. I would think that God is so busy. He's doing so many things. Why would he care about me? Why would he care about Abraham? Why would he care who had a baby and who didn't? Why would he care what even happens on this earth? He's got, in this solar system alone, 9, 10, 12 planets to take care of, for all I know. The understanding is that God maintained his view on Abraham and maintains his love as well, which is, to me, amazing, but becomes an essence to our faith. We need love. We need to know that God cares. We need to know that people around us care, which is essential to the family situation. But we need to know that we need to give off love as well. He that would have friends must show himself friendly. We love our neighbor as we love ourselves. We've got to love ourselves, and we've got to love our neighbor. And so Abraham finally has his son. Finally, through his wife Sarah, at an elderly time, they finally conceive, and God grants them the chance to have their own child. In fact, it's so amazing. It's such an unusual circumstance that Abraham and Sarah both laugh. Sarah especially laughs at the possibility of her age being pregnant, and God said she was going to become. And she had trouble believing it. Well, no wonder. I would have had trouble believing it too. and being put through all that, being tested by all that. Now, studying Abraham is a very interesting caricature of personality because he seems to have been a great fighter. He seems to have been able to lead the people in wars. He seems to have been able to take care of his people while he headed them out into the desert. And when they lived there, he seemed to have taken well care of them, notwithstanding that God did guide him and take care of everybody, of course. But there are a lot of things about Abraham that I forget, like his battles in the war, like his ability to choose what land they were going to go to, like his ability to move through the desert, take care of his people, maintain his faith in God, even when he's not having the children that God promised, and taking care of his wife. I can't help but think, this is more than I could handle. I'm just not this good a Christian. I can't help the way that Abraham needed help. I can't put faith in a God that acts like this. At least I don't understand it. But obviously God's ways are not my ways, and his thoughts are not my thoughts. And I can see why. And then, here Abraham and Sarah are so happy with Isaac. They're just having a great time. By the way, you can catch up on this. If I'm not mistaken, I'm going with my memory, but I think it's in Genesis 22. And then the story of Abraham goes on from there. It's around that stage anyway. Look over those chapters and see where it begins. God is communing with Abraham while Abraham's having a wonderful time with his newfound son over the years, of course, and Sarah, who is so grateful now that possibly God can renew his promise that they're going to have more children and grandchildren and children after that, which does happen. But God says to Abraham, right in the middle of all of this contemplating how wonderful a day it is, Abraham, I want you to take your son. I want you to take him up to the mount. I want you to sacrifice him to me. I want to see how much you love me. Sacrifice my son to you? What do you mean? God says, you know what I mean. I want you to sacrifice Isaac to me and give him back to me. Now, how would I have reacted to that? I don't think very well. In fact, I don't think I could do it. I don't think I have that much strength. Now, maybe I do. Maybe we do have more strength than we realize. Maybe we do have more faith than we understand. And maybe we're not supposed to philosophize on how much faith we have and what we can stand. I don't know. I just don't have that much faith in me. I don't think I'm that strong. In fact, I've seen myself. I think I'm very weak. I think in trying to exercise and believe in what God says, that I don't see him. I don't see God, and I don't know where he is or how he wants to react, and I get discouraged. I get to wonder, where is my faith in this point? What can I do to build up my own faith and believe? And Abraham, to my amazement, tells his son that we're going to walk and take a long journey. Sarah, not knowing where they're going, packs up anyway. And although she asks Abraham, where are you going? He can't answer and she doesn't push it. She's been here before, but she doesn't know where they're going. And then Abraham and Isaac head to Mount Moriah, I believe. And I'm sure along the way, they had to have their talks. Imagine what kind of talks these must have been. Isaac talking about fun and growing up and dreams he has and ideas and people he's met in school. It's people that have been traveling with him and kids that are his age. Abraham, on the other hand, knowing that the trip is going to end with the death of his son, as far as he knows, the sacrifice of his son to God. And although Abraham would try to have a good time, how could you have a good time on a walking trip like that, knowing that you're walking with your son to the sacrifice, and your son is going to be the sacrifice. I don't think I could have done it. I don't think I have that much strength. But finally, when they get there, up to the mount, and finally, when Isaac is asking, "Where is the sacrifice? Where's the animal we're going to sacrifice? Where's the animal that we're supposed to take up with us to the mountain?" And Abraham's answer, just like "Where are we going? I don't know," is God will provide the sacrifice. And then finally they get up there. Abraham picks up his son. After they pull the sacrifice bound together, and his son obviously helped him get those twigs and stuff that was going to be on fire to give the sacrifice. When the mountain sacrifice is finally completed on the top of that mountain, Abraham picks up Isaac, carries him to the sacrifice, puts him on top of the wood, probably ties him to the wood, I suppose. You'd have to. How could somebody not jump off of there if not? And at that point, Isaac comes to understand he is the sacrifice. Think of a horrible experience. Think of the moment. Think of an awful moment when somebody you love has suddenly told you something that puts you in awe with terror. And Abraham picks up the knife, about to take Isaac's life, prays to God and yields Isaac to him. Isaac by now must be scared to death. He must be crying his head off, or trying not to cry, realizing that he's now going to die. These are his last moments, last seconds. And Abraham picks the knife up, heads it towards the chest of Isaac, who is sitting on the sacrifice, and an angel stops the hand. It was an angel, it very well may have been Jesus himself, stops the hand of Abraham and says, "Put your knife in your sheath. I had to see if you really loved me more than Isaac, because I know he's the child you love." And then even more than that, and less that we understand when we're back there, but now that we understand better, we see a new picture of God yielding his son to the cross. And this story starts to make some sense. Now this will help you and me to understand that God's thinking is greater than ours, that his plans are greater than ours, that he understands much more than we do what's going on. And the story of Abraham is going to be remembered for centuries, for as long as we go to heaven. As long as we praise the Lord, we'll remember the story of, if I don't fade in his presence, and I probably will, I'm going to try to see Abraham and talk to him if he'll talk to me. What a great man of God. So much greater than I am. So much greater faith to believe that God really cares and that God would take care of his son. Think of the promises that Abraham had to put up with. You're going to conquer other worlds. Abraham, you're going to rule people. You're going to have the greatest kingdom. You're going to have a child in your late age. Your wife is going to have a child. And God will supply the sacrifice. How do you believe all that? How, when you don't see anything going on, how can you trust in a God that has promised these things and yet take off to a land you don't know, sacrifice your son, expecting the sacrifice to be supplied? It's amazing. Forgive me for being colloquial. It's unbelievable. But I guess it isn't. It's a story for the ages, that's for sure. And as I look at my life in regards to Abraham, I realize how little faith I have, how little I deserve, how totally without an understanding of what God wants me to do. I get mad at the least little thing. I have trouble forgiving. I have these wants and what I think are my needs. All of them. Promise to be taken care of by God. But I have trouble believing it. I have my doubts. I philosophize too much. I think too much. And that's why Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still, Keith, and know that I am God." It says the same thing to you. Be still. Stop thinking. And know that God is caring for you and taking care of you. In fact, Jesus said, never criticize under any circumstance. Believe that I will take care of you. Those are hard things to do. And beyond my faith. But that's what it is. It's beyond the faith. It's putting Abraham's son on the sacrifice and about to sacrifice him according to God's will for whatever reason, because God said to do it. And then God stopping his hand and saying, I don't want you to kill Isaac. Hudson Taylor was a very popular missionary. And he was strong. He was an excellent preacher. People would come for miles to listen to him talk about the gospel. They would listen to what he had to say. They would anxiously understand his love and his kindness, his sermons. People always felt a little closer to God after they had heard him, until he started to get old. And at the same time, noticed that he was sick. The story was that Hudson lived on a hill, and climbing up the hill trying to get home, he was almost too weak. He was losing his strength. He knew it was about time to go to his heavenly home. In fact, he even stopped along that supposed journey and said to his partner and cohort, I can't go up this hill. I can't make it to my house. They had to carry him up to his house. So at one point during that health study, where Hudson was getting sicker and sicker, his missionary partner said to him, Hudson, what are you going to do? Hudson didn't even have the strength to sit up. But according to the written record of that last meeting, Hudson said in a bit of a raspy, weakened voice, I'm not going to do anything. I've preached all I'm going to preach. I've studied all I need to study. I've placed my faith in God. I believe that Christ will take care of me. And therefore, in my weakened condition, I lay back and I sit in his arms. I let his arms go around me, and I let him hold me until I've gone. Well, in essence, Hudson was saying, I'm not going to do anything. That's what you and I do to experience God's faith. There's nothing we can do. We need to relax. Let God take over. Rest in his arms. You're facing some kind of trouble. You got some kind of trial right now that you're worried about. You got some kind of difficulty that's not working out, or you got some trouble with the in-laws, or trouble with the family, or trouble with the kids, and you just don't know what to do. Well, that's what you do. You be still. You know that God is going to take care of you. Just sit back. Rest in the arms of God. Ask Jesus to take over. In fact, let me pray for you right now. Pray with me. Jesus, we can't do it. We don't understand you. We have a lot of problems trying to make things work our way. Forgive us. We don't know what to do. except to place our lives in your hands. Give us a hug. Take us into your bosom. Let us, like you asked us to, come and rest in you and find our peace. Thank you for taking care of us. And thank you for helping us and forgiving us of our sin, and for being so concerned about us that you would die on a cross and be our sacrifice. We need to develop our gratitude. Thank you for carrying us, Jesus. In his name, amen.